Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Meta Cafe. Grab your cup of coffee, your tea, whatever, sit back and let's chat about the astrology for the day. And it is a nice day, even though the weather outside here is pretty gloomy and windy and stormy, but it is going to be a decent day. I can guarantee that. It doesn't mean that we won't have surprises or upsets, but for the most part, today seems to be one of the better days of the week, maybe even one of the better days of the year so far. So, how is everybody this morning? Linda, it's good to see you. I noticed you weren't here, and I was just thinking today that if I didn't see you out there, I was going to have to text you and see what was going on. I hope you're well. Good morning, Asa. It's good to see you. Good morning, Debbie. Good to see you too. So here we are today with the moon in Aquarius, one of my favorite signs, but also one of the least understood signs, I think, of the zodiac, as it tends to get a bad rap. People tend to think of it as aloof and not feeling, but that it's not true at all. It just has a more objective viewpoint of the world. And so it tends to stand back and see things from a different point of view, like my little giraffe that is he's getting his head in a position I could never get mine, but turning your head upside down and looking at things in a different way. Good morning, Michelle. It's good to see you. So today is that day, right? The moon late yesterday afternoon here, 4:40 p.m., would have been 7:40 p.m. for you all on the East Coast, moved out of the sign of Capricorn, where we'd been this stern and steady Eddie energy, into this more crazy upside down looking energy of Aquarius. And Aquarius is related to two planets. The sign Aquarius has a traditional ruler and also a more modern ruler. Its traditional ruler is Saturn, which is the ruler of Capricorn. And the more modern ruler is that of Uranus. So you can see there's that tendency I think Uranus actually fits it much better than Saturn does, in that the sign of Aquarius is inventive and it's innovative and it sees things differently. It sort of is out of the box thinking, where Saturn as a ruler would really want to put it in the box kind of thing and do things the traditional way. And Aquarius does anything but tradition, right? They're two different kinds of energies. So today, the moon in Aquarius, with its innovative, inventive, and quirkiness, is in a square to Venus and in a sextile to Jupiter. So in Jupiter, and I mean, we know a sextile is a good kind of relationship. Squares, you're often hearing me say that that's a challenge. But when we're dealing with Venus and the moon, the square relationship is still a pretty beautiful relationship between bodies. And it brings up this energy of enthusiasm and optimism, sort of hones that in a little bit deeper. And it is also a great day for us to socialize and party, if you will. I know my husband's office, they have some kind of shindig going on today where somehow there's prime rib and twice baked potatoes involved. And so today's a great day to be in community, to be with the people that you love, that you work with, that you're close to. And just about the only negative downside of this energy at all today is the tendency to overdo it. When you get Venus and Jupiter involved with the moon, there's very little discipline, very little. So there's a trouble spot right there in terms of drinking or eating or, having too much fun, that kind of thing. I don't know. Can you ever have too much fun? I've been at parties before where there's too much fun and people get hurt, right? Because there's weird things that they do that they think is fun. One thing I'm thinking of is one time they thought I was at a party and it would be fun to jump off the roof and into a pool, and someone missed. Luckily, they weren't hurt badly, but that, you can see how things that are fun can go too far. And that is the case with Venus, Jupiter, and the moon today. So don't take things too far. Stay within reason, right? But your friends, your community, your family are all things, especially friends and your networks of people that are highlighted today. And the ability to make stronger connections and be more engaged with one another is very powerful today, and also very meaningful. You got to be disciplined, though. You have got to be the one to be the grown up to be able to say enough is enough, right? Enough is enough. So let's see, more people are checking in with us this morning. Good morning, Michelle Brooks. Good morning, Rebecca. Good morning, Vanita and Diana Balgard. It's good to see you, ladies. Mimi, good morning. Good morning, Michelle Gay. All the gang is checking in, and it's a good day to check in because I have good news for once to tell people, right? It's kind of fun. So one of the things I meant to tell you all yesterday is that there's a key theme this week. We might have touched on it now that I think about it. And there's a key theme about being true to yourself. And if you guys get my blog posts or you get the newsletter, you may have noticed I did the weekly broadcast or the weekly forecast, in a new format where I actually gave us sort of a blurb about what was happening on the day and then the best action that you could take for that day. Well, of course, I totally forgot that I had done that. And yesterday's best action is about being true to you and allowing others to be true to them. And where I got that theme from was from the human design energy for the week, which was about integrity, right? And being honest and being truthful, not only with others, but also with yourself. And the more that you are trying to hide yourself, or the more that you are trying to hide the truth from someone else, the less likely that that truth is going to remain hidden, because this is a week where exposure comes to the forefront. So in order to be true to yourself, you really have to accept yourself, number one, as you are, and accept your path in your life. But then being true to yourself also speaks to our being able to do the work we love, to be with the people we love, and to engage in the topics and things that make us happy. So that's a huge theme as we move through this week when we're talking about being true to oneself. The other gate, the Earth gate, we did talk about the Earth gate yesterday being at gate 45, where that is you being your own it's you being your own leader. It's you being your own CEO, right? The CEO of your own life. And what does that mean? Well, what is the CEO? It is the chief executive officer. They make all the key decisions and they make everyone else align with that decision and make it enacted, or they, put it into play. And you're your own CEO. So you should be aligning your life. Everything in your life should be aligning according to your will. That's a word you don't hear me use an awful lot, except for the will center. And that is because 45 actually connects to the will center through the gate 21 of control. And even though gate 21 isn't triggered right now, the fact that it's reaching down to the will center speaks to the need for us to use our will to move forward in our lives, right? You have to use your willpower. It's not enough just to say, I want to be this. There are steps you have to take, and you have to align everything that you want to do with the steps that are going to get you where you want to be, right? You can't just say you're going to be an author and you're going to write a book and then not ever write a word. It just isn't going to work. That book isn't going to magically write itself. And many times we do this in our lives. I've done it in my life, right? I've said, I want to do this, and I don't get there because I never take the steps to do it. So this week is about realigning yourself with yourself. How's that, right? Being true to you. And then taking the next steps. By next week, we are dealing with light. And when I say next week, I mean next week in the Human Design Week, which actually begins this week. I want to say it's on Thursday, but it might not be Thursday, Saturday, Friday, Saturday. Saturday, we move into the new Human Design Week, which will see the sun at gate 11. And gate 11 is about enlightenment. It is about the light. It is literally in the gene keys. Gate 11 is light. And in the gift, it is idealism. And in the shadow, it's obscurity. So where things are being covered over, where your gifts and your talents and things that you want to do are being brought down frequency-wise, covered up, if you will, hiding your light under a bushel, if you want to go quoting sort of biblical terms. And it'll be about our emerging out into the light. Note that the gift was idealism. And idealism is a very Aquarian sort of energy. And even though we're not at the Aquarian part of the year, it seems to be that Uranus and the moon in Aquarius are leading us to a path of being able to express the truth of who we are and to, sort of reveal yourself, unveil yourself. Your work of art in progress needs to be revealed in whatever way that is. So we get to do that. We get to do that. This is something we get to do. This is the fun part of living, right? To get to reveal yourself to the world. Good morning, Cindy and Colleen and Willa. It's good to see you ladies this morning. And Cindy says, happy day. Hope everyone is great. I'm hoping that too. It certainly feels like a better day today. Perhaps because the Mars-Neptune conjunction is releasing its hold on us. And I'm all for that one, right? I'm all for that one, that vague sense of feeling not good, or I was going to say dis-ease, not disease, but dis-ease, not feeling at ease. That was that Mercury, the Mars-Neptune conjunction that we've been dealing with for the last several days. And hopefully it's waning. As I look at the chart here, Neptune is at 13 degrees, Mars at 16. So they're still within striking distance of one another, but Mars is moving on to meet up with his new best friend, Chiron, later on in the month. We'll talk about that another day, because I am not bringing us down for today. Today's energy is all about feeling good, being good, having fun, playing, being optimistic, being true to yourself, innovative, inventive, and with one little caveat that says stay disciplined, right? In terms of staying within reason. Don't go, overboard doing weird things. So a part of what makes this day so good is the Seahawks won last night. Yes. And now they're in the running for the playoffs, and I love it. Extending the football season is what I'm all about. Anything, because after football's over, there's just no more fun things in the sport world until football again. I'm not a big baseball fan, but I love football. And that time of year where we have football. Yeah, Debbie. Yay. So it's going to be fun. Anyway, I just threw that out there because it was the most exciting yet lackadaisical game I've seen in a long time. For the longest time, the score was 0-0, and then it was 0-3, and then it was 0-6. And then we took off running, and I think the Vikings were only able to score one touchdown. So we won. And it was a great win. Today, Mercury is in an inconjunct to Uranus. Now, this might be the only fly in the ointment of the day, but it's so in behind everything, kind of couched and covered up. And it is a more obscure sort of connection between the planets, but it can create havoc in the background if you're not aware of what's happening. I'm going to show you on the chart here what a quincunx or an inconjunct looks like. So here we have, this inconjunct is between the planet Mercury, which is over here in the latter degrees of Scorpio. And it's 150 degrees between, because everything moves this way in the chart, unless it's retrograde, and then it moves clockwise. So Mercury is right here, and Uranus is over here. And there's this 150 degree angle between them. We call it a quincunx, and that's how you would spell quincunx. And it's a hard word to say, so I like to say inconjunct. And then there is a 150 degree relationship between those planets. And a 150 degree relationship, remember, we talked about some of the relationships between planets, and in some cases they're friends and they get along. And in other cases, they are challenging one another. And in some cases, they just don't even get one another. And that's what happens here between Mercury and Uranus today, that there is this, in order to even understand what the other one is trying to do or say, they would have to totally adjust their mindset and or adjust how they're thinking and or how they're communicating. In this case, because it's Mercury, we're talking about the mind and we're talking about communication. So here today we are in a way a little bit challenged to say what it is that we really mean, and that, or even challenged to try to say things in kind or gentle ways. So in that case, today may be a good day to keep your mouth shut if you can't say something nice, or if you already know that you've been having trouble expressing something, be quiet. Don't say anything else, right? Keep it, keep it kind, keep it gentle, keep your words down to being nice, speaking to others in a way that you would want to be spoken to. And literally, if you can't say it nicely, don't say it at all, because there's this vague sense between the two of disruptive communication. And other people, of course, remember, we're not dealing with just how you deal with the world, but all of the unconscious people who don't follow the astrological day-to-day information. And they're out there totally unconscious about what's happening. And they may be the ones that are delivering that kind of energy to you. So what do you do with that? Well, you recognize that they're in their unconsciousness and you love them anyway. You may have to walk away. You may just have to, choose your battles wisely kind of thing and save it for another day, because this is such a vague sense of energy beneath the scene. It's really not something that needs to be elevated to battle stations, right? Don't elevate it to that level. Keep it down, just allow that to pass without saying too much. Right? You're being true to you, and nothing anybody else can say to you takes away your truth, right? Even if they're being unkind or not gently saying something, you don't have to take it personally. You don't have to take it to heart and make it yours, right? Don't make it yours unless it truly is yours. And in which case, then indeed, you don't have to speak back. You could just say, isn't it interesting that I'm seeing that out there? What does that mean for me? Why am I dealing with this? What is it? Why did I react this way? Or why do I want to react this way? And deal with it from that level rather than, packaging it up and throwing it back out at the person who might have hurt your feelings. So again, that's just vague and it's in the background. And it's somebody, in the midst of an office party tonight or a social event who does over imbibe and gets a little maybe tipsy and says things that, they're totally not meaning. Or maybe they really meant to say it, but, would have kept their mouth shut, but, loosened lips because of, over imbibing. So these things are kind of working together today, one much more subtle and in the background, while the other ones are much more the openness, gregariousness, and excitement and optimism of the day overshadows that tendency to get a little bit irritable, but it's there. So you might as well know about it. All right, let's see what people are saying today. Rebecca, I've noticed a lot of sharp tongues this morning, so it feels good to be in the know. Good deal. Kristen, good morning to you. Kathy, good morning to you. Kathy says, we are having a very blustery morning here. I love stormy, windy, rainy days. We're having the same thing here, Kathy. So there we have it, right? Blustery. I have a sister that lives in North Carolina, and I'm going to have to reach out to her today because somewhere I read that North Carolina got dumped on with like 3 feet of snow. What? That's craziness, right? That is just total craziness. So hopefully everybody's safe and sound. Speaking of the news, you know how I do my daily sort of run through the news, not because I like the news, but because I like to see what things are lining up as far as predictions and astrological energies, how those astrological energies, the as aboves, how the as above is affecting us down below. And yesterday I saw an article, and I cannot find it today, and I didn't write it down, but something about how there is a fear rippling through the financial markets about a financial crash. I opened up my news this morning and I see that Janet Yellen, who was the former Fed chairwoman, warns of a potential financial crisis. Interesting, right? It's already been predicted. You heard it here. I've been sort of saying that since Uranus first moved into Taurus back last April or May. And now that Uranus is turning direct in January and will hightail it back into Taurus, I'm thinking that we are looking at the potential for that. Whether it is some kind of event from the outer world that triggers it or not, I don't know. As in, who knows? A disaster of sorts, another terror attack. I don't know. That part is unclear. But what is clear is that what's probably happening is there is some kind of exposure of unsustainability, of practices in our economy that have been unsustainable, that are unsustainable, but we continue to do them. And I have a feeling that that's, what the problem is. It's sort of in the background. And when I set up the astrology for 2019, one of the things that I told people was about the idea of being conservative, being a good steward, and hoping that if you took that to heart, that no matter what was happening in the outer world based on circumstances well beyond our control, that you would be protected in some way because you'd been doing your due diligence, not overgrowing and overexpanding, which is Jupiter's tendency in Sagittarius, but taking more of the Saturn and Pluto and Capricorn to heart and making sure that growth is sustainable in your life and that all of your resources are sustainable. Your time, your money, your foundations are set, right? So knowing this ahead of time is totally priceless, right? So that even if something were to happen that creates havoc in the markets or out in the outer world, you are protected in some way. And of course, using your intuition to see how that plays out for you personally. All right, any questions? The Andersons are in the middle of a snowstorm. Andersons. That is my sister's son. I don't know anyway. So I want to say something else this morning. I happen to be I'm going to bring up a subject that astrologers hate. They hate it, but I love it because in some parts I'm a little bit of a troublemaker. I like to disturb the peace. And I'm going to disturb the peace this morning because I went to my astrological app, my Star Maps 3D, right? The one that I suggested all of you get and put on your phone because you point your phone at the sky and it tells you what's where. And it's absolutely fun when you're looking at a star and you don't know what it is and you discover, oh, that's the planet Jupiter. Oh, that's the planet Saturn. Or, oh, that's Rigel, or, whatever, the different stars and things in the sky. The program I have also outlines the constellations, which is huge, right? Because then I can see in graphic detail that the sun is actually sitting in the constellation Scorpio, while we're saying that the sun is in the sign Sagittarius. But what I discovered was that the sun is not sitting in the constellation of Scorpio at all. It is in the constellation of Ophiuchus. And herein is what astrologers hate, is people like me that bring this subject back up time and time again. And I love bringing it up because it speaks to where sometimes astrology gets stuck, much like scientists do, in their own dogma and in their own dog do, if you will, right? Because definitely when astrology began, what the ancient astrologers, wise men, wise women were looking at is the movement of the sun against the backdrop of the constellations in the ecliptic. And they noted and they outlined them and then they named them. So they named them Aries and named them Taurus and Gemini and all these things. And that went along with the mythologies of the time. And at that time, there were only 12 constellations that they would see from Earth along the ecliptic plane. Now, if you're not following me, write questions in the chat and I will go back. Now, fast forward several thousand years, and the sky is no longer just the 12 signs on the ecliptic plane. Oh, no. Another constellation has come into view, and that constellation is Ophiuchus, who in mythology was also called Serpenticus. It is the man who is wearing the snake, right? Very similar to the symbol of the caduceus, the healer. And so we have this constellation now that the sun moves through every year from about November 30th through December 17th. But astrology is based on the 12 signs, the 12 constellations, and never moved forward, at least Western astrology, never moved forward with a new mythology to embrace this new constellation that is appearing on the horizon. Now, I get it, right? I get it. We hold these things, these sacred cows, we hold our traditions and our beliefs sacrosanct, right? We do not want to make waves and change things. Oh my God. It would somehow undermine the credibility of astrology, right? Wrong. I think what undermines the credibility of astrology is their inability to move ahead with the times. If the sun is definitely moving across the face of a different constellation, it's quite possible there is a new mythology in the making. And because we are so blind and we are so one-track mind with science and being able to prove things and what have you, that we forget the sacredness of our stories, of our mythologies. And there's definitely a mythology associated with Ophiuchus, and it's that of healing, the wounded healer. Chiron, right? Chiron. So we discover a new planet in 1978. We name it Chiron. But we refuse to recognize that the sun is now moving in front of the face of a new constellation. And ultimately, it was the constellations that the zodiac was built upon. So why haven't we moved ahead with that? Well, I can tell you it'd be very disruptive. It would mean that we would have to validate that mythologies are built on some truths. And that would undermine science, right? That somehow it would bring science and mythology or spirituality closer together. And we haven't been willing to do that yet. Even astrologers, who for the most part are engaged in an ancient divination tool, right? An ancient tool of divination. So while I'm not ready to throw my hat in and say, everybody, there's a 13th sign, and if you're born from November to 30th to December 18th, you're an Ophiuchian and not a Sag, or because that would be Sagittarius. I'm not quite ready to do that because it isn't quite apparent yet how that plays out. But I find it interesting that every year now, the sun is moving across the face of that constellation. So there isn't a seamless move from Scorpio to Sag. It goes from Scorpio to Ophiuchus and then to Sagittarius. So there is a 13th sign now on the ecliptic plane. And astrology was built and based on those 12. Well, I think it's time that we make room for maybe that 13th. It may be why sometimes we feel out of sync. It would adjust the entire zodiac, by the way. It wouldn't just like throw in a new sign. It would be an interesting change. And there have been people who've written books about this, and they get laughed out of the academy, basically. It's like, back in the 1960s, I think it was. I think it was in the 1960s. Maybe it was in the 50s. Scientists put forth an idea of plate tectonics, and they were literally laughed out of the science academies, right? Their papers weren't published. They were, literally laughed out of science, and serious science. And then what happens, I think, later in the 60s is they find out, of course, there's this thing called plate tectonics, that in reality, the land is floating on a liquid magma foundation, and that the continents move. Amazing, right? So sometimes things like the science and astrology would like to fancy itself a science. In fact, in the very early days, it was a science. It was a very valuable science. They don't move ahead with the times. They stay behind. And they try to drum out of and make fun of and laugh people who are forward thinking out of their sacred halls. So, because I don't care, I don't care if they want to laugh me out of their drum me out of their halls. I'm going to keep bringing this up because I think it bears our looking at what is changing in the human template, because it is as above, so below. You can't have that as your sacred tenet and then ignore that there's a changing sky. It doesn't make sense, does it? It doesn't make sense to do that. And there are other astrologies, Eastern astrology, sidereal astrology, where they are looking at the actual planets and points that are actually in the constellations as opposed to the signs, right? So when, if you look at your, I'm pointing to my phone over there. When you look at your apps, your star map apps, you see that the planets that I'm telling you, Jupiter's in Sagittarius, when you look at the constellation it's in the one just previous to it. Because the something called precession of the equinoxes. The entire galaxy that we are in also moves across the backdrop of the stars. And it moves at 1 degree every 71 or so years. So over the past 26,000 years, it is why the ages change, why we change from the age of Pisces, where we're in now, to the age of Aquarius, because the whole system is moving across the backdrop of the sky. And that's huge. We recognize these patterns, but we don't move the very foundation of our science in astrology forward with it. Vedic astrology, Debbie says, yes. Well, when it was suggested the earth was round, they were laughed at too. It's an age-old issue, right? It's an age-old issue. It's the same global warming, right? There's that, we have the ability to understand things, but then we are also so obtuse at times and just ignore the obvious signs of things that are happening. Rebecca, good morning. Again, I've always believed that astrology is based on observation and correlation, so I don't think we can deny this much longer. At least I hope not. It's interesting, isn't it, Rebecca? Because we would have to rewrite the whole of the astrological picture. We would have to. You couldn't just insert a sign and say, oh, okay, so we're going to put this here, because it would change everything. And I think that there's something worthy here to look at. And I'm not necessarily, I'm the harbinger, right? I just yell it out there to you all. I'm the seed planter. I'm definitely not the one to write the book on this or to move things forward, but I can bring it to people's attentions and have you start really thinking about this and looking at it. This morning, I thought it would be fun to look up all the articles I could find on Ophiuchus. That was almost a pointless excursion through the internet, because most of it is all, oh, this is hogwash and this is stupid and this is, blah, blah, blah. Oh, this was the best one, that somebody put forth that this was a trick by scientists, astronomical scientists, to discredit astrology, so that every once in a while they throw it out there and to discredit astrology. Well, okay, if that's what they're doing, and there's got to be a nugget of truth there, or it wouldn't be showing up in the reality. So it's really an interesting talk. It's interesting for us to look at, because what I think Ophiuchus is the pathway to healing of our separateness. And my husband just chimed in and said, lost my coffee. Nope, you didn't lose it, sweetie. It is sitting right by the coffee pot. I noticed that when I got my refill for my show. So it's not lost at all. It is sitting here at home. So you are without your coffee cup. Find a new one. But thanks for checking in with us. All right, so here we go. When we're thinking about then all the articles that are out there written about this, it is dissuading us from taking this healing path. And we must take this healing path. If we don't, we're in trouble, right? We're in trouble. We're getting ready, at least in this country, to seat a new Congress. Do you want more of the same dissension and fighting going on? Or do you want them to start working together? Working together requires healing. And healing requires us to take a look deep within and see what it is that is separating us. What is keeping us from unity? What agenda is there out there that works better with us being in separation than us being in unity? What is that about? Some people would say follow the money. right? Follow the money, follow the power, the lines of power. And what kind of power would the masters of the universe have if all of us as people came together in our unity um, uh, and let go of what separates us? They wouldn't have power anymore. They couldn't have power over people who weren't going to fall for their schemes to make it look like we were separate, or that we were losing because China was winning, or whatever the new thing is, right? These new stories that keep us off on an edge, right? That keep us on an edge. So let's see. Colleen, is this sidereal astrology or different still? My 16-year-old loves to bring this up. It is sidereal astrology. I don't know much about sidereal, but I do know, I think sidereal is more heliocentric, if I'm not mistaken, which means I practice an astrology that is earth-centric or geocentric. It puts the earth in the center. See this being here? That's like the earth, right? And in the middle, if we're living on earth, then from our perspective, it is all of these other things that go on around us. I think sidereal is heliocentric. It puts the sun in the center. When the sun is the center, all of the planets, of course, are transiting around the sun. There aren't things like eclipses, I don't believe, and planets don't retrograde. So it's interesting to think of heliocentric. And I believe Vedic astrology or Eastern astrology is much more, I don't know much about it, but I think it is definitely more in alignment with the constellation and the zodiac sign being compatible. Meaning that when I'm telling you that Jupiter's in Sagittarius and things are going to be more optimistic, a Vedic astrologer is probably going to tell you that Jupiter's in Scorpio and that we're looking at some intense times, etc. So difference of the way that we look at the stars in the sky. But I learned it one way. It doesn't mean that I don't think of the other ways, but it's always stuck on me, stuck in my craw, if you will, that when I'm looking up at the sky and I see Jupiter, that Jupiter isn't technically in the sign I think it's in, at least not for the full of the transit, because it's literally in a different constellation. And that if we trace our roots backwards in astrology, that the original astrologers were looking at the signs as the constellations, and they just didn't move ahead with the times as the entire sky was transiting. It's hard to think of that as, the entire, so we think of, Mercury transiting around the earth, or the sun, excuse me, and the earth transiting around the sun, but the Milky Way galaxy transits around the black hole in the center of the universe. I mean, everything is in motion. So against the backdrop of the bigger, wider universe, the Milky Way has also been moving. And it's what moves at about a degree every 71 years. So it's barely perceptible to us as humans. It's barely perceptible because our life expectancy for most of the time up until the more modern times had been less than 70 years. So we would never live to see the transit of a degree of the universe against the Milky Way against the backdrop of the sky. But we're aware of it now, right? Science can measure that, and that's how we know things about the ages. And the ancients knew the thing about ages as well, but they knew them from a different point of view. I think maybe, if you guys know anything about Ancient Aliens, it's one of my favorite shows. If you have never seen it, find it. I believe it's on the History Channel, maybe, or what is that other channel? Maybe, I don't know. Check out the History Channel. I think it might be on that. And they go into a lot of the stuff that perhaps there were visitors much earlier in Earth's history that gave knowledge to some of our ancient cultures, and that over time that knowledge was lost or relegated to myth, and we've lost it, or we've reconfigured it to mean something else. So in any way, that is what I had to bring to you today. Interesting stuff. Let me stir the pot a bit. and give you something to think about, something to research more about. You know, one of my favorite things is mythology. So look up the mythology of Ophiuchus or of Serpenticus and what does it mean? What did the snake mean besides the fact that we think the snake in the Bible meant that, you know, was betraying Adam or something, or betraying God? It doesn't have anything to do with that, but looking at snake to see the deeper meaning, right? What does it really mean? And taking it from there. Let's see what people are saying. Mimi, just musing. An acceptance of a 13th sign with the rising of the divine feminine. Oh, hell yeah. The number 13, right? The number 13. Is it the emergence of lost information? Is it the emergence of the sacredness of the number 13 that was sort of hijacked by the number 12? I don't know, but I think it's interesting. I think it's interesting. The number 13 has always been associated with the feminine and the rising feminine, the reluctance to accept a 13th sign. I think they all kind of go hand in hand. Suzanne says Gaia, Earth, Gaia, I think she's talking about the mythologies of Gaia. See what else people are saying. Patricia, great info regarding the stock market. Thank you. I could feel that too. Being a Taurus, of course you would. Of course you would. Taurus. And I don't know that it's just the stock market, Patricia. I don't know enough about the financial markets. I could care less, really, except that, of course, I care because I have to relate this information to you guys. So I've never really studied the financials. I really don't even know how the stock market works. But I do know that I've seen the stock market fall, and it always does seem to do that right around this quarter. And it goes crazy. And I'm looking at the astrology for next year, and I see October looking pretty cranky and November and December looking even crankier. So that makes me think, maybe we need to take care in this year and not grow too far too fast, because I think that exacerbates the gigantic holes that didn't get filled with the last economic downturn. You know, and I feel like sometimes we are just beating our freaking heads up against a wall. That definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over, but expecting new results. When are we going to get it that this economy is a problem? Right? That the way that we view the economy, the way we view trade, the way we view everything to do with money is a problem. I don't know when we're going to learn that lesson. I just don't know. Just don't know. Because again, it would be like us rewriting astrology to include a 13th sign. It would literally turn everything upside down. And it would have to be reframed in such a massive way that it could be entirely chaotic. But yet our insistent refusal to make the changes that we need to, even if we did it incrementally, is virtually guaranteeing us at some point we are going to have to live through another topsy-turvy upside down thing, because we just keep recreating the same problems. Definition of insanity. Same problems. Same problems. All right, everybody, that is all I have this morning. Anybody have any questions? That is what you can watch Ancient Aliens on, is Gaia. Gaiam. Oh, I bet you're talking about Gaiam TV, like GAIAM, the TV channel. But it's also on the regular TV channels on cable TV, which I want to say is on the History Channel. So whatever your TV channels are, take a look and see. Just look up Ancient Aliens in Google and find out. I think I want to draw a card. For no other reason than Debbie. Oh my God, Debbie, you're so funny. She says card, ? Just as I've picked up the cards and decided I wanted a card. I was picking up your thoughts, Debbie. She's in Florida. I'm in Washington. It just kind of shows you that people's thoughts can translate through. All right, so I'm going to pull a card. I'm not asking any particular question, just what do you want to tell us? And I got this card, Yang, but it was upside down. And Yang is number 1. Number 1. And look at those hands coming out of the unknown. coming out, what it looks like is fire, right? The fire, the birth of the universe, yang, but upside down. So let's read what that means. We've had this card, I think, a couple times. So yang, the essential meaning is the masculine principle of movement and creative activity, the power to make things happen, taking action. The general message of the oracle says yang represents the power of action, the energies that propel the world forward and manifesting thought and desire into concrete form. Now is the perfect time to act, for you can easily build momentum and make headway. What you want will come to fruition if you proceed confidently. This card signifies new life and is a sure sign that obstacles have been overcome. There is no reason to hesitate. You are the shaper of your destiny now. However, it was upside down, so the protection message may modify that a bit. It says projects, partnerships, and all matters relating to your business are out of the obstacle phase, woohoo, and on to the make it happen phase. Now, excuse me, that is not the right thing. I'm sorry, I was reading the prosperity message. The protection message is on the other page. That is Mercury quincunx Uranus. The protection message says, be mindful of the tendency toward impulsive action or overconfidence and aggressive behavior. Think before you act, lest you find yourself in a situation that will lead to uncomfortable consequences. Be sure you really want what you're chasing after, because you might be sorry when you get it. The appearance of this card isn't cause for fear, for life is all about learning lessons. Practice temperance, diplomacy, and thoughtful consideration before making a move. I'm always sort of stunned with that, and I don't know why it keeps stunning me, but I guess it should keep, making me really excited to find that the cards often validate exactly what it is that we're talking about, right? The theme was being true to yourself. That's a theme this week. This card seems to validate that. Don't just take willy-nilly action. Make it focused action. And on top of that, what was the other part of it? It said, be sure you really want what you're chasing after, because you might be sorry when you get it. Remember yesterday we got the card not for you, and it told us that sometimes you're being protected and not getting what you want because you're being protected. That getting what you want may not be in your best interest. So that sort of backs that up and validates that. Suzanne here has the number 1 resonating with the beginnings, creation, independence, uniqueness, motivation, striving forward and progress, ambition and willpower, positivity. I wonder if I show this, if that then means that it will be on the page. We'll have to see. Also, she put up, let me hide that again. Let me see. She put up number 13. 13 is made up of the attributes and energies of the numbers 1 and 3. Number 1 brings its vibrations of new beginnings, striving forward, motivation and progress. Number 3 relates to optimism and enthusiasm, communication and self-expression. Angel number 13 is a message from your angels that some upheavals may take place in your life. This is happening for karmic reasons and will break new ground for you that will bring about new opportunities for you to grow spiritually. The angels ask that you adapt to changes gracefully. And angel number 13 may be a blessing in disguise. It's a message from your angels that you are being guided and assisted with your soul mission. Trust that the angels and ascended masters are by your side as you go through transitions that will bring into perfect alignment with your divine life purpose, that will bring you into alignment with your divine life purpose. If you are unsure of your next steps, ask your angels for guidance and assistance. Awesome. Yes. All right. Thank you, Suzanne, for bringing that up and posting that for us. And I think that card validates everything we've been saying today. I kind of like that. 13 people watching. Oh my God, you're right. There are 13 live viewers right now. Not that you're alive, live meaning 13 people joining here in the moment. I love that. Number 13, sacred, sacred. What is Patricia saying here? 13 equals 33. Okay, hold on. I lost it. Let me put that back up on the screen. 13 equals 3, 3. 1 times 3 equals 3. 33 is a master number. 1 times 3 equals 3. Oh, I see you're multiplying it. Gotcha. 33 is a master number. Interesting stuff, people. Well, I think there's also magic in the air today. Isn't that great? So take your magic and enjoy the day. Remember to stay true to yourself. Today is not a day to over-imbibe and overdo anything, so be mindful of that. Yet it is a good day, a day for optimism and a day to be inspired to do things that are true to you. In the meantime, I will see you tomorrow. Have a great one. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.